Welcome everybody to today's video. We are going to talk about eating solids, our babies taking in solids, whether or not breastfeeding is going to change, and kind of just give you some ideas of what to expect when you begin to start solids. We are going to talk about when it's good to start the solids, and we'll talk about what things to start first and why, and go into that. Before I really go into a whole lot, I want to talk about a few things I think that are important to mention at the start. Number one, whenever you're looking for sources for breastfeeding help or any type of health thing, honestly, but when it comes to breastfeeding and starting solids, what you need to do is you need to look at your sources. Always try to get from reputable websites, if you're going to go with that, or from well-known authors, or coming from, you want it to be a reliable source. On top of that, it needs to be from a reliable source, but it also needs to be as up-to-date as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to be dated 2018, but when you're looking at, so say you want to talk about starting solids, you want to look for, I'm trying to think of something specific. So let's talk about food allergies and starting solids. When you're looking up something on food allergies and how to proceed with feeding when it comes to food allergies, you want to look at the most up-to-date information. Again, it may not say 2018. So say you're looking at something and it says 2013 or 2011. And you're reading it and it's giving you some information that you want to, you're getting ready to start your baby on foods and you want to know how to avoid. Maybe you have some allergies and you don't want the baby to have them. Whatever the case, you want to look for something that you want to look at the most up-to-date research. So when you're looking, look at all your different resources, look at all your reliable sources, and then look at their dates. And a lot of times you'll see an update for that year. Like if you go to like kellymom.com or you go to healthychildren.org, I think it is, and different websites will have, it'll say when it was updated. It'll give a date usually at the top or at the bottom. If you're reading an article that somebody wrote, it usually will have a date, like a year that they wrote it. And so I'm not saying that something that was written in 2008 or 2011 or 2012 is outdated. In fact, the information that I'm getting from is 2012 article. But you just want to make sure that it's agreeable with any research that you have seen in 2018. So if you're looking at starting solids and you're looking at an article that's 2018, it's on a reliable source, and you know that it's coming from CDC or World Health Organization or somewhere in that, reliable area, then you're looking at something, you're reading something that's 2012 and it has some really good points. As long as they're in agreement, then you're okay. But if there's some conflicting information from 2012 to 2018, you either want to go with the 2018 or you want to do more research, making sure that what you're reading in 2018 is the most up-to-date research, that kind of thing. So I'm spending a few minutes on that because I think it's very important for moms. We have so much available at our fingertips when we go online, and so much information thrown at us, whether it's from something we read, something we see on the computer, on our smartphones or whatever, or whether it's people telling us stuff, our doctors, our nurses, pediatricians, primary care doctors, whatever. Like, you're getting all this information coming from everybody, and everybody's going to give you their opinion and their story. So for instance, when I had my kids, my sister's kids were like 10 years old. And so she's telling me things that don't necessarily pertain to what I'm dealing with and are not necessarily the most up-to-date, accurate information. And so you can't always just even go by what your sister says or what your mom says or what your best friend says, because times change. Research changes every day. Every day, every year, new research is coming out clearing up things such as allergies. So one thing I wanted to mention about allergies, because we're going to be talking about it, is that it used to be advised that when you start solids that you avoid foods like dairy. Foods that are high can have high reactions to, have high allergic reactions. So dairy is a big allergen, I guess I could say, and eggs and nuts and so forth. And so we were told, so say you had allergies, we would tell a mom to avoid those things, because if you had the allergies, there's likelihood that your baby could get them. So you might avoid peanut butter or whatever. But now with new research, they have found that, and I had come across this just recently, where I was told this, if you wait and you prolong the introduction of certain foods, that's the higher the risk will go of having allergic reactions. Say in your family, everybody has an allergy to dairy, and it could very well likely be that your baby will have an allergy to dairy. But it's sort of like when you go to an allergy doctor and they give you certain kinds of medicine and they give you shots. It's not that they're going to take that allergy away, but by giving you a little bit of that allergen, it builds a resistance. So some people can have shots for a year and then not have any issues with their allergies again. Some, it just minimizes the reaction. So some is just kind of makes it more manageable. And then there are some that it doesn't help at all. But in this case, by introducing small amounts of those foods, you less likely for that child to develop a bad reaction to allergies. All that being said, of course, you're going to watch, and we'll kind of get into that. You're going to watch how your baby responds to foods as you introduce them. Another thing that I want to mention is that a lot of times we think that when we start breastfeeding or when we start solids that milk becomes not as important, that it's not really needed anymore. But really, the baby is going to get their most nutrition in the first year from breast milk or formula through milk. So you're still going to want to be breastfeeding. Now, the amount that they're going to take from you or how often they breastfeed will diminish. Like that will gradually decrease, but not at first. And again, a lot of the nutrition they're still going to be getting from your breast milk. So you don't want to necessarily stop breastfeeding. Of course, someone who chooses to stop breastfeeding at 6 months, that's okay. But of course, then you're going to replace breastfeeding with formula. So food is not going to replace milk. Okay, it's not going to replace breastfeeding. It's not going to replace formula. It's a supplement. And then eventually it will become like after a year, they're still going to need so much milk, but then the milk need decreases. So I'm going to kind of mention how many ounces a baby will need from the time they're born until about 9 months. They're going to take in somewhere between 25 and 30 ounces a day. It could even be up to 32 ounces a day. Okay, and that's from the time they're born till about 9 months. Every baby is different, so you can't go based on just me saying 32 ounces or 25 ounces. Every baby is different. So some babies need more than others. So usually 25 to 30, so let's say 25 to 32 ounces is pretty, is somewhere in there for up to 9 months old. Once you hit 9 months old, it could still, from 9 months to a year, it could still be at about 25 to 30, but typically it can be anywhere between, I want to say, I'm going to go with a little higher end and say 19 ounces to about 25 to 30 ounces. So every baby's different in their needs. Some need more milk than others. Some will prefer their milk over solids in the beginning. So because it changes constantly, just understanding what the baby needs. And that is something that I'm going to tell you to talk with your pediatrician about, finding out exactly how much milk they want your baby to be having on a daily basis and with their age. You can also look up that information. I will try to put some links that are updated and reliable in the my description like I always do, but always speak with your doctor. Don't ever change something that you're doing based on something I say or something somebody else says without first confirming it with your doctor, because we wouldn't want, you wouldn't want to do something that would harm your baby because your baby's needs are different from somebody else's. So always, always check with pediatricians, making sure that it's safe, whatever it is you're choosing to do. Another point that I want to bring out is that when you start off adding solids, you want to breastfeed first and then add after. And you're going to, and I will kind of touch on this, but you are going to most likely in the very beginning try to use solids when you know the baby is the most hungry and when maybe your milk supply seems to be the less, which is usually at night, in the evening and at night. So I would say like evening, bedtime time period. So late afternoon, evening, you could introduce some solids. You're going to start off with just a couple spoonfuls because they're not going to need very much. In the beginning, you're just, getting them used to it and adding it to their diet. You're kind of teaching them. So those were the couple of things I wanted to mention. I also wanted to mention that somewhere between 6 months and 9 months, I wouldn't say exactly at 6 months. I would say it will be a little bit past that. Once the baby seems to have established, what they like and what foods they prefer and how much they eat at a time, you can then start them on a routine of feeding them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Again, the younger they are, I would breastfeed first and then feed after. But if you notice, say you're bottle feeding and you notice that they drink a bunch of the bottle, but they barely touch the solids, you could do the solids first then in that case, and then follow with the bottle. So I would say the older they get, that would be. But the younger they are, so at 6 months, you're still going to want to breastfeed it for every meal and then follow with a feeding, solids. And again, it's not going to be a breakfast, lunch, and dinner necessarily, unless you notice that even breastfeeding as much as you were before, baby still seems to be hungry and want to eat. You could go ahead and start feeding them more. But starting small, starting just a couple of spoonfuls and then gradually increasing is something for you to just think about and kind of see your circumstance. This is not for everybody, just knowing what works for you. Some babies do fine with just breastfeeding and they're not really real hungry. So just a couple spoonfuls in the evening would be all that you would need to do. And then other babies, they eventually, they want more. And again, like I said, this is going to be in the beginning. And then by the time they're a year, they're basically going to be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks even. And then they're still going to be nursing a couple times a day, like maybe 3 or 4 times a day. One other point that I wanted to bring out is when to start. So we'll start with that. When to start offering solids. You're going to hear a lot of different things. You're going to hear 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Usually that's what you'll hear, anywhere from 4 to 6 months. And it used to be that it was 4 months. And now they say 6 months or beyond. And that is because a baby, an infant, doesn't need anything but breast milk or formula for the first 6 months of their life. That's all they need. They don't need any solids. It isn't until 6 months the body actually, so this is what we learned from breastfeeding, is that the body actually the iron starts to diminish from the milk, the breast milk, at about 6 months. So that's usually when your doctor will mention to you to start iron supplements. So if you're going to start foods at 6 months, you're going to want to find iron fortified cereals, baby cereals. You're going to want to pick out things that are rich in iron, such as meats like turkey. Another one I mentioned, turkey, chicken, and beef. You're going to want, and if you're not wanting to feed your baby beef, again, you want to do things that are iron rich, and then you're probably going to have to do a supplement because your baby needs to get lots of protein, things that have high protein, high iron, and high zinc are rich in those things. So you can get a lot of this from cereals, fruits, and vegetables. So you can look into that. And when you are picking out a cereal, a baby cereal, which typically is what they want you to start on, is baby cereal. So at least that's what it was, a few years ago. It's starting them with rice cereal or oatmeal. You want to make sure that when you get that baby cereal, that it just has one ingredient, which is the rice. One ingredient. You don't want other things added, because then if they do have an allergic reaction, you want to know what it's to. If it has like eggs or dairy or something in it, plus the rice or plus the oatmeal, you're not going to know if it's the oats or if it's this or if it's that. So try to stick with things that are one ingredient. And the same with baby foods, which is why you will see like baby foods are numbered, and you'll see like the beginning is the consistency is much thinner, and it's usually got just one ingredient, so that you know what they're reacting to. So that is the number one thing in starting, is just knowing what to start with. First of all, knowing when to start. So I didn't really even mention that. That was what I was starting with, and then I got sidetracked. So when your baby is starting to sit up with very little support, when they can hold their head up, when they're grabbing for your food, what was another one? They act, I had mentioned this already, that they act hungry even after they've breastfed. Again, this is going to be after at 6 months and beyond, not before that. Because if it's under 6 months and at least under 4 months, I know a lot of doctors will put babies on cereal or whatever at 4 months. So I'm not going to go against what your doctor says. So if you're starting at 4 months, this would be prior to that. Like anything that's up to that mark, I'm going to say 6 months. It would be possibly a milk supply. They're not feeding enough. They're not getting enough milk out. It could be one of those issues. I wouldn't introduce food just because your baby is struggling with being hungry after feeding if it's before 6 months or before 4 months, especially before 4 months. So those are just some things that you can be looking for as to knowing whether or not your baby's ready. And always, always get the okay from your doctor before you begin solids. Especially since if your baby does have a reaction and there is something going on, you can talk with your doctor, and your doctor understands and knows what you're doing. If you're just doing this off the cuff and you're not talking with the doctor doesn't know what's going on, then it's harder to be like, oh yeah, well, we decided to do this. And that you want your doctor's support and your doctor's guidance. So I mentioned that the consistency of food is very thin. Same with cereal. You want to make it very thin. You can mix it with breast milk or formula. As they get older and they can have juice, you can even mix a little juice in it. This is what I used to do for flavor, but this would be a little bit later on. So you would start with maybe your breast milk, and you would make it very thin, a couple spoonfuls. And as they get older and they get better and better at eating, you would slowly thicken the consistency and add more. So they would be eating a little bit more, but this would be gradual. And then when you start foods, like I mentioned, you're going to start one specific food, and then you're going to stay on that one food for, I would say, a good 3 to 5 days, just to make sure that the baby is not having a reaction to it. Again, if this conflicts with what your doctor says, then you would want to talk with your doctor and make sure that it's safe with anything that I'm telling you, because I am not a doctor and I'm not going to go against what your doctor says. Yes, I am trained with breastfeeding and helping moms with this area, but I would never go against what your doctor tells you. Let's see. Another thing I want you to know is that as the feeding relationship grows with, the feeding relationship started with breastfeeding, then you add solids. Solids aren't going to replace that relationship of breastfeeding. They're going to make it more complex, but it's going to slowly transition and become maybe the higher nutrition, like they're getting the most nutrition or their most calories from the solid foods, but it won't ever replace breastfeeding unless you decide to, whenever you decide to wean. So don't ever feel like as soon as you start solids that that's replacing breastfeeding, because it's not. Not in the beginning, not until after a year old would you, and you could continue to breastfeed even after a year, but after a year, their milk needs change. So that's just something to know. And the milk needs decrease as the solids increase. So again, I just mentioned that. I've already talked about doctors might recommend an iron supplement. So about the 12th month, you may notice that your baby is only breastfeeding maybe 3 times or 4 times a day, and that is fine. That is normal by then. If you're deciding to wean, you can, slowly decrease that. But something to understand, another benefit to adding solids slowly is that it also adjusts your milk slowly. So as the baby is slowly increasing their solids, they're slowly decreasing their milk. That makes it more comfortable for you. You're not going to have like this big drop of supply, or the baby suddenly stops eating and you have these breasts that are full and uncomfortable. So doing it this way just helps keep everything, comfortable for both you and for your baby. And then if you decide that you are not going to wean after a year, you would just continue breastfeeding whenever your baby desires. This even would, I guess, apply to 6 months. You want to always let them feed when they are, when they desire it or when they request it. And like I said, once you get to a certain point, I would say like 9, 10, 11, 12 months, it's more, it is still nutritional. It's still part of their need. They do need it, but they need less. And so you can find out if some of that feeding is just the baby, wanting for comfort, and just even a baby who usually comfort feeds, usually by a year, it's down to like breakfast or mornings, nap time, and bedtime. Like it's just on its own. It will gradually drop. In fact, I want to say about 10 months, it starts to do that. Like they're just wanting it in the morning when they first wake up, and then maybe at nap time, maybe after they wake up from nap time, and then bedtime. So it's like you just don't have as many, or if they fall and hurt themselves, or they're sick, or they're, I would say sick, they could get sick and not be able to eat a lot of solids, and so they breastfeed more. So all of that comes into play. So that is it for the, breastfeeding and starting solids and just, knowing what to expect. If you have any questions that I didn't cover, please leave it in the comments below and I will try to answer them. If there's more that you would like me to talk about, specific, that you want me to do a video on, please leave that in the comments as well. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It just will let you know when I put up videos. If you click the notification bell that is next to the subscribe button, that notifies you whenever I put up a video. So if you want notifications by email or text or whatever, that will, when you click that notification bell, it gives you that option, and you most likely get notifications by email. And then if your computer does notifications, or you have a smartphone, those will send notifications. So please take that moment to hit that subscribe button and help us reach that 1,000 mark that I am working towards. Thank you guys for watching. Give it a thumbs up if it was beneficial to you and if it helped you at all. And I will see you guys in my next video.